Hello friends, welcome to the channel. I am Poonam Dua and today we will know about this writer, Emily Dickinson, who is considered to be a little strange writer because she used to be confined within her house and many of her poetries were not published during her lifetime, and major poetries are based upon the grief, death and painful kind of scenarios. I measure every grief I meet. This is the title of the poetry that we are going to cover today, although her most famous poetry I'll say is Because I Could Not Stop for Death. There is a separate video for that poetry as well. You may search easily and find out that poetry too. To cover Because I Could Not Stop for Death, you may search in YouTube putting the title of the poetry and my name Poonam Dua and you will easily get the description of that poetry. Let us talk about Emily. Emily Elizabeth Dickinson, American poet, little known during her lifetime, and was born in Amherst, Massachusetts, into a very well-to-do family with strong ties to its community. She used to remain confined in her house and had although many friends and many people who were her well-wishers and with whom she created a kind of community, but she always used to remain confined within the house, and she at one point of time she even started wearing only white dresses. उसका भी एक इंसिडेंट है, उसकी वजह से उन्हें एक टाइटल भी दिया गया है that I'll talk about later in this video. लाइफ स्पैन याद रखिए 1830 to 1886. Lived nearly her entire life in Amherst, Massachusetts, and wrote hundreds of poems and letters exploring theme of majorly death. She was very emotional, we can say. Death, faith, emotions, truth, these used to be the themes of all her works. As she got older, she became reclusive and eccentric, and parts of her life are still mysteries. Many things she did not publish, what she behaved, why she behaved. No one exactly knows. From the age of 31, she dressed only in white. She spent most of her time in seclusion and sought solace in nature only and within her house. She was reclusive and, as I told you, started dressing in a wholly white garment. That is why she was recognized as White Myth of Amherst. White Myth of Amherst. This was the title given to her. Here is the list of her major works. Success is counted sweetest, very short, very sweet, very philosophical, short, choti si poetry. I'm nobody, who are you? Hope is the thing with feathers. I felt a funeral in my brain. I measure every grief I meet because I could not stop for death. This is I'll call to be the most famous, the last and the first in this list. Because I could not stop for death. This video you can easily find in YouTube putting the whole title and my name. Let us talk about this poetry now. One of Emily Dickinson's longest poems, we can call it to be. 40 लाइन्स हैं इस पूरी पोइट्री में. इतनी लंबी पोइट्रीज वो लिखा नहीं करती थी. जनरली बहुत शॉर्ट होती थी उनकी पोइट्रीज. Around average around 12 to 15 lines. I measure every sorrow I meet is a reflection on the nature of sadness. How sad you are, how sad others are in the world. The speaker of the poem discovers herself examining other people's sadness for parallels to her own. If I am more sad or they are more sad. She ponders the burden or difficulty of other people's suffering and whether it ever goes away. Whenever we start suffering because of something or the other, whether it ever goes away. She finds some solace in the thought that someone else may experience similar suffering, making her feel less alone. I'll say, like the majority of her poems, this one was published after her death officially, but the earliest copy in which it is known to have appeared is 1862. Maybe she wrote it in 1862. I measure every grief I meet with narrow, probing eyes. I wonder if it weighs like mine or has an easier size. I wonder if they bore it long or did it just begin. I could not tell the date of mine, it feels so old a pain. These lines, she is trying to say she keeps on evaluating other people's sorrow with very focused and very curious eyes. And she wonders whether her sorrow is heavier or their sorrow is heavier, whether it is easier, easier to to tolerate the sorrow by others, and she wonders if they're carrying it for a long period of time or if it has just begun. Then she says, ki, I cannot tell the date of mine, but I know that my pain is very, very old. I wonder if it hurts to live and if they have to try, and whether could they choose between it would not be to die. I know that some gone patient long at length renew their smile, an imitation of a light that has so little oil. In these lines she is saying that she feels astonished whether it is painful for others to live with the pain, whether they struggle to keep going, and whether if they had the choice, and do they choose ever to even die. I notice, she says, I notice that some people after years of patient suffering eventually start smiling again. Renew करते हैं अपनी smiles को. With a smile as dim as an oil lamp that is running low on oil. एक ऐसा लैम्प जो जिसमें अभी तेल की थोड़ी सी कमी हो, ऐसा स्माइल एटलीस्ट कई लोग कर पाते हैं, अपनी स्माइल्स को रिन्यू कर लेते हैं इवन आफ्टर लॉन्ग लॉन्ग पेन. I wonder if when years have piled some thousands on the harm that hurt them early, such a lapse could give them any balm. Or would they go on aching still through centuries of nerve, enlightened to a larger pain in contrast with the love? Then she says, I wonder whether after so many years, whether after thousands of years have passed since the trauma that originally uh, gave them the pain, thousands year actually is kind of a hyperbole. It has been exaggerated. Nobody lives for 1,000 years. Metaphorically, it has been used. She says, ki, do they ever get comfort even after the lapse of so much time, thousands of years, or would they still be in pain despite centuries of courage, awaken to an even greater suffering than great love? Do they awake every night with the pain only in contrast with the love? Maybe she wants to say that every person should get love, but instead of love, every person is getting larger and larger pains. The grieved are many, I am told there is the various cause. Death is but one and comes but once and only nails the eyes. There is grief of want and grief of cold, a sort they call despair. There is banishment from native eyes in sight of native air. She says that many people in this world are unhappy because of many different reasons. There are many causes, and one of the cause is death. But death comes only once, and the only harm that it closes our eyes. There is grief of want. Everybody has different too many desires. One desire is that maybe other people are turning cold towards you, and that is the reason of despair. And there can be a reason, banishment from native eyes. There is sorrow of maybe being exiled from your people while still living close to home. Sometimes it happens even if you are living in the home, it seems that you are exiled from your very own people. And though I may not guess the kind correctly, yet to me, a pacing comfort it affords in passing Calvary. To note the fashions of the cross and how they are mostly worn, still fascinated to presume that some are like my own. While she says, I might not correctly guess which kind of sorrow someone is feeling, I still feel a comfort in passing by the versions of Calvary. Calvary is the representation of Jesus Christ's tormentation, an open air representation of the crucifixion of Jesus. When people see that Jesus suffered this way, Jesus was crucified, maybe they do find some comfort in their suffering. We are not at least tormented to the level of Calvary. To note the fashions of the cross, she says that I find comfort in noticing what kind of crosses people are bearing these days and how they tend to bear them. And she says I'm still fascinated, still captivated by the thought that some of their sorrows resemble my own, and This helps me to make a community with them. I measure every grief I meet. This is what actually she has done in this poetry. She keeps on looking maybe into the eyes of other people which she finds to be sorrowful, and she tries to, make a comparison if my grief is heavier or their grief is heavier. If you get to write a question about Emily Dickinson's viewpoint ever, or to write about her poetry, you can write that mostly she uses the theme of grief. You can give this example, you can give the example of because I could not stop for death. The speaker of I measure every sorrow I meet is compelled to contrast her own pain with that of everyone else. She is making a comparison that we know. She ponders the cause of grief in others, if it is in any way heavier or lighter, and whether it lessens over time. टाइम के साथ साथ कम हो जाता है, मेरे ग्रीफ से ज्यादा है, मेरे ग्रीफ से कम है. That she keeps on analyzing. Even though the speaker eventually admits that she cannot completely understand another person's loss, just knowing that others might experience similar grief as she does makes her feel a bit less isolated. When she feels I'm unhappy, someone else is also a bit unhappy, then I feel a kind of relief. This shows that grieving is both a very personal feeling and one that brings people together. According to the poetry, it becomes a universal feeling as well. This is one of the very favorite quotes of mine. We turn not older with years but newer every day. Such an inspiring quote that we should keep looking towards something new that happens every day. With this quote, I end this video. You may join the classes to cover all the topics in detail. Can click the link given in description to get connected to us for admission. Thanks for watching. Best of luck for exams, and please do not forget to share and subscribe the channel.